let me know.
All right, and we are live.
Okay, thank you, Ron. It's 4:30 on February 3rd, 2021. We're having a virtual meeting due to COVID-19 pandemic. This is the Public Works Committee, and I'm going to call the meeting to order, acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Now we're going to request for approval of the previous meeting's minutes of January 6th. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Second it.
Okay, any additions, subtractions, or changes?
Yep.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Citizens' comments. I've been informed there's no citizens' comments. We will go to department report. Director Pitts. Is Donnie here?
Donnie does not appear to be here. Hang on a second.
Okay, we'll move on to number 5 and come back for the report. And that is number 5A is update on phase 3 drainage project, small internal projects, and Waterway Boulevard path elevation presented by Thomas and Hutton.
Ron, you want me to handle that?
Yes, if you would, sir.
Yes. So this is Douglas, just giving, going to pass along to you that Gulfstream has provided their schedule for this project, and it has them mobilizing first at the 41st Avenue intersection and doing the work at 41st initially, and they have indicated that they would be mobilizing February 15th. They're a little bit behind schedule, but I think that they're going to probably catch up and end up fine in terms of scheduling. That's all I really have for the small project. Ron, I think also on the agenda is an update on the elevating the waterway path. And I would just say on that project, we are still waiting on a cost estimate from Thomas and Hutton. They have presented kind of conceptually what it's going to take to do that work, but they are working through the details to figure out how much it would cost for that work to take place. And while I'm here, I'll also just tell you that the Thomas and Hutton has submitted permit requests for the Forest Trail and what they call the 30th Avenue outfalls. They are still working with their environmental consultant on mediation for the 41st Avenue project. So that one is a little bit behind in terms of submitting those requests to OCRM, but I think they're hopeful to get that wrapped up and submitted soon. That's all I have, Ron, unless there are any questions.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Douglas, I was wondering, at our last meeting, we discussed the possibility of trying to provide some lighting, perhaps with the waterway multi-use path, perhaps inlaid into the path itself, or maybe some kind of solar option. Is that something that's been conveyed as a possibility to Thomas and Hutton to look into or come up with options on?
I am unaware of that. If that is been passed on to them, it was done without me knowing it. But hearing you say that now, I can certainly do that. Just pass that along as a thing that you all would like to see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item B, update on memorandum of understanding between the city and Dominion Energy ahead of the next tree trimming cycle. Is there a report here?
So I believe the report on this one is going to be the presentation from Dominion Energy regarding their tree trimming and what that's going to look like moving forward. And we're working with them actively to come up with an MOU It has not taken final shape yet, but it is actively being worked on.
Very good. This is same hold true for item C, discussion of Dominion Energy's non-standard service fund and list of eligible projects. Consideration of an MOU with Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission regarding the island sewer master plan. That
It
related?
does. Yeah, and so we have a couple of projects for the non-standard service fund that are included in the packet. As you'll see there, project one is to underground some overhead lines that are currently around the city marina, also along 41st, 21st, and 14th Avenues. And then lastly, along Palm and Oak Harbor Boulevard between 11th and 13th. There's some.
Can you come here and get her?
Do what?
Excuse me,
Sorry.
Rusty?
Yeah. There are some maps of these individual projects in the agenda that I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, put up on the screen now if anybody would like to see them. So this first one here might be a little bit hard to see because I'm sharing a window, but it's a section of the marina with some overhead power lines. And we can see the estimated cost range down there under the project notes at $150,000 to $250,000. And the current renovation projects that are ongoing are the marina restaurant slips. And then there are communications on this line as well. On the next page, we can see the 41st Avenue section. And I don't want to take over entirely for Dominion. So if you guys have anything to add or want to speak on this a bit, just feel free to hop in.
Yeah, Ron, we can handle it, whatever your preference is. Just, again, wanted this to kind of be a conversation with you guys. So if you want us to kind of go through those, each estimate we can. I just thought I could introduce our team and we could go from there. So you guys tell us what you want how you want to handle this.
Yeah, why don't we start with introductions on your side and then you guys can kind of walk us through what is available, I guess.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us tonight. I have, like I said earlier, brought the A team with me. I'm going to go through everybody and we can, again, get to questions in a second. But I've got Bill Turner, who oversees our electric operations for all of Dominion Energy, South Carolina. Danny Cassis, who oversees strategic partnerships and renewables. Jim Swittenberg, who is the manager of our Mount Pleasant crew quarters, and that's who services the Isle of Palms. Shane Kimball, our engineer. Will Reed, our account manager. Mark Branham, he's our forester and also supervises the vegetation management program for this area of our service territory. Got Paul Fisher in public affairs, and I am Jennifer Hightower in government affairs. And as you may recall, I am an Isle of Palm resident as well. But given that we have a new, but maybe not so new name by now, I just wanted to share with you guys that all of us are legacy SCE&G employees, and we have, deep roots in this community. And, many of us have actually called the region home for nearly all of our lives. So a lot of experience here with storms. I think Danny, Bill, Jim could probably give you some really interesting history about the devastation of Hugo. And I think Bill even has an interesting story about finding some underground equipment from Wild Dunes over in the marshes of Mount Pleasant. But I just wanted to share all of this because really, above all, we remain committed to the safety of our employees and the general public, as well as the level of service that we provide to this community and all of the communities we serve. Just safety is truly paramount for all of us. But basically, last fall, our team met with city staff and Councilman Pounds to further discuss, our vegetation management program, reasons for the critical safeguarding of our system, the associated outreach that we do for any trimming project, pros and cons related to underground conversions, and then the non-standard service fund and these potential projects. So after that meeting, we kind of, huddled up internally, talked about the project. Shane put a lot of work into this to just give a really high level and preliminary estimate. And I think that's really important that you guys understand these are estimates, preliminary and still would require a lot of engineering work to really understand what would be involved. But so again, rather than giving you a formal presentation of things, you've already seen, I think we presented prior to the trimming project beginning in 2019. And then again, last summer, talking about the palmettos. We just really wanted this to be an opportunity to have a conversation with you guys, just to give us some guidance as to where you want to go with this and just give us a better understanding of your priorities. So with that, I will let you guys kind of let us know how you want to start. If you want to start with the trimming related activity, or if you want to start with these projects, you got us at this point.
Well, how about trimming? Everybody's very interested in the trimming. What's going on with that?
Sorry about that. I'm having trouble coming off of mute. So, well, obviously, the 2019 trimming project is complete. We will be back on the Isle of Palms in 2024. We trim on a 5-year cycle. And forgive me, I didn't realize I didn't have my video on. I'm sorry. Anyway, so we'll be back on Isle of Palms in 2024. We have a standard set of clearances that we use across our territory. And Mark can certainly talk a little bit more about those specifics and any questions about, the standard we use. But currently, again, we're done with the 2019 trimming project.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. And thank you, Jennifer, for that good overview. We talked last time we addressed tree trimming. There was discussion about a second set of trees that you can already tell are going to be problematic, and whether there's anything we could potentially do to address that proactively. Are there any suggestions along those lines?
Right. I think you mean like we call them category 2 or something like that. The palms. So those probably would be candidates for removal the next cycle. So in that 2024 cycle, Mark, do we have that list? I'm just not sure if we have it to share, if we even have, identified every address at this point. So I'll let him answer that question.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So we actually do not have a category 2 list for the palm trees. All we did on the Isle of Palms was category 1, meaning basically the palms that, presented an immediate threat.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, the category 2 palms, like Jennifer said, next cycle being 2024, some of those Cat 2 palms, they are going to be to a height that most likely will require removal. So, if any of your residents want to look at possibly having a landscaper dig them up to relocate them, or, some may opt to just let them do their thing. And then, of course, Dominion's going to have to come through and top them out, get them removed. But at any time that somebody has questions on, is my palm tree a candidate for relocation? Maybe the contractor doesn't feel safe doing it. They could always reach out to Dominion for more specifics on that.
So you're not planning to generate a Cat 2 list at this point that could be used for reference for people to know that, for the future, that their tree may very well need to go down the line?
No, ma'am. No, next cycle being 2024, what's going to happen is we'll come through and just do an assessment. And it's really more like a case by case situation with the palm trees.
Okay. All right.
I think everybody's on, certainly concerned about the palm trees and the palmetto trees. But how does this all fit in with regards to the live oaks, our huge old ancient live oaks? That's what it's got people concerned mostly, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Can you address that for us?
Yeah, one of the difference with live oaks is, it's a structural tree. In other words, it can be trained and directionally pruned to grow away from the power line. Whereas a
Right.
palm tree, you know, it's just this vertical growth structure. Once it reaches a certain height, you know, you only have one option at that point because you can't train it to grow away from the power line.
So, I mean, you know, the obvious point, the obvious question is, are we going to have the emotions tied to the project as we did in 2019? You know what I mean? Where people were upset, you know, just put it bluntly, with the oak trees. But since you had such a radical pruning in 1924, do you have any projections about what's going to happen on as far as the oak trees go? Do you understand?
Of course, the oak tree trimmed again. And at the same time, you know, we would encourage all of the residents, customers to come out. You know, usually we'll host a public workshop on tree trimming. We always ask the municipality if they want to host one with Dominion. And it gives everybody an opportunity to come out and learn about utility trimming, directional pruning, ANSI standards. So yeah, the live oak will be trimmed again. We get it. It's not always popular. It doesn't always look good, but that's just the nature of utility trimming.
Well, I think that preliminary introduction would probably help out a lot. Any other committee members have any thoughts on this?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we talked about at some point, excuse me, I think earlier, late last year or early this year, that that we were going to have a process that we would further educate the community ahead of time in regards to next tree trimming, and if there's any mitigating factors that we can take into consideration ahead of time. Could we, I know we kind of touched on that just in this conversation right here, but are there some plans that we can put in place to go ahead and start doing this early on rather than waiting to, I know we're several years away from the next cycle, but started getting people more educated as to what the mission will be and what to look for in a tree trimming cycle?
Sure. I think that, you know, one thing that we do, and Mark just mentioned it, was the workshop. And unfortunately, not that many people show up. You know, it becomes a much bigger deal whenever the guys are in front of the house doing the work. So, you know, if we could work together to get you guys to help us really publicize that event whenever the time comes. And, you know, typically what we do with our outreach, prior to an upcoming trim cycle, we will meet with the municipality, usually in December of the year before, maybe January, just kind of depending on, you know, timing of schedules and things like that. But we'll meet, we'll talk about the project. And I mean, Isle of Palms is, you know, I won't say unique, but, you know, we're not trimming Isle of Palms every single year. You know, it is typically, you know, a 1-year project, whereas in some municipalities, we are trimming every day of the week, every year. You know, it really never ends. So this is something that I think we have the opportunity, you know, in that time beforehand, we can work together to figure out how can we best get the word out to the community. And, you know, I think we'll rely on the town to help us with that. But if you could encourage people to come to these workshops, you know, we have a lot of staff there. We have our contractors. We want you to come. We're happy when people show up. So that would be, I think, one way that we could really work on the public outreach. I don't know, Mark, do you have any other ideas for that? Or Miss Smith, sorry.
Yeah, if I could just interject that we also talked about trying to do more around the message of right tree, right place. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you all had some ready-made materials that perhaps our city could start putting out on social media. Maybe we might need to tweak it a little bit for the Isle of Palms, you know, what's growing here and the fact that we have more palms and palmettos. What do you guys have along those lines?
Absolutely. We can put together information for you, but that would be wonderful if we could have you guys promoting that message, because that would really alleviate not all of this conversation, but when people do plant these trees underneath the power lines, eventually one day, and it might be past all of our lifetimes, that it's going to become a problem. So yeah, we can work together to get some information for you guys to help us push that message. That would also be very helpful.
Well, and that is something that we could be doing now.
Mhm.
And then certainly reinforce as you get closer to the a time when we need to do a tree trimming event
Yeah.
down the road.
Jennifer, do you normally have low turnout in all of the municipalities where you have meetings ahead of time in regards to tree trimming, or is it just an Isle of Palms issue?
It is not just an Isle of Palms issue. Sadly, that's kind of the case all over. And again, like you said, it becomes emotional for folks. And Mark and his team, and again with the contractors present, and Jim, Danny, Bill, they're present as well to have these conversations with folks to explain what we're doing. But also, Mark can give an arborist perspective as to how we cut trees. We're doing it for the health of the tree, also for the safety, keeping people safe away from the line. So we really want people to attend these events, and it is not just an Isle of Palms thing. It is I think a service territory wide. Anytime we hold these, turnout can be sparse. In fact, I want to say that we maybe had more at the Isle of Palms workshop that we held than we did, one for the city of Charleston. So it's kind of interesting, who actually, takes the time to come out. But it just varies, but it's usually pretty low.
I think what happened in that too is that by the time you got to Isle of Palms to do some trimming, there'd already been some work in, I think, Sullivan's Island and maybe down Charleston that had sort of, raised the flag for our folks, and maybe that was part of it. I do have, before I turn it over to the chair, Council Member Smith, I do have one other question in regards to tree trimming before we move on to like underground electricity, whatever. But I had a conversation with one of our residents. Excuse me. One of our residents on Saturday. Excuse me. I was eating a peanut earlier. One of our residents asked about tree trimming with a tree that's close to his house. And he had asked when Dominion was out there doing some trimming, if he could trim the tree that was, they had the power line was nearby. And I guess whoever it was that was addressing the issue didn't have it on the work order, so they didn't do anything. Is that pretty common, or is it something that's responsibility of the homeowner? How do you handle that typically?
Yeah, so typically that would fall back on the homeowner, unless it's within our clearance area. He could always have a private arborist come out and assess the situation. If the private arborist deems that it's unsafe for him, it could be a situation where a limb is too close to one of the primary lines. Right. They could always call Dominion for a second look, have another assessment. But if it's outside of our clearance area, typically that would fall back on the homeowner.
Okay, that's the answer to the question. I appreciate that. All right. That's it on tree trimming for me.
Okay, I was just wondering, are y'all constantly trimming trees in your areas 12 months of the year? Or this is something that is just done sporadically, like on a 5-year cycle?
We're trimming trees every day of the year, minus holiday.
I was just
No, sir. That is excuse me. I got a frog in my throat too. Excuse me. No, we're trimming these circuits on a 5-year cycle. Mark and his team, we have it mapped out, so they're working it. Like I said earlier, some municipalities have trimming all the time versus just different sections within the municipality are seeing the 5-year cycle. But I mean that's something that we work on all the time. It keeps the lights on.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Back to Rusty's point, then. I know it sounds like you're like extremely busy, around the calendar, but it might help us as far as a PR standpoint for the next tree trimming, maybe get out a year ahead of time before you get out these neighborhoods that are close to us, so we don't feel like we're just waiting for the guillotine to fall. And maybe y'all could get out a little early if we're requested, and maybe come and do a presentation before the full city council, maybe a year or so out. Just a suggestion, so maybe people won't get so shell shocked and worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to do that anytime you guys would like this to come.
Okay.
I think Bill and then one of the guys that works for Mark presented, I think the summer of 2019. So before the work started. Actually, we were happy to get it in when we did, because we were able to promote that workshop that we held. So the timing was perfect for that. But yeah, I mean, that is something we're open to do and happy to do.
Very
For
good.
you guys.
Very good. Thank you. I think we're
Hey,
getting out.
Jennifer, one thing I
Go ahead.
wanted to mention on the palm removals, we initially had a list put together, got most of those on the list removed, but I still have 6 or 7 palm trees on the island we need to address. And the plan on that is to meet individually with each customer. If nobody's home, we'll leave a door hanger for them to contact us, but did want to mention that there are 6 or 7 trees left that we need to address.
Okay. Currently.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So our agenda talks about the memorandum of understanding in terms of Dominion and the next tree cycle. Where are we with that? And Ron, feel free to pipe up if you have an idea.
I think from our perspective, Ms. Smith, we just want some guidance. We've kind of laid out all of the things that we do, prior to these events or the trimming projects occurring. It would just be good to kind of have a better idea for us, what exactly you guys want, so that we can kind of digest that internally amongst ourselves and come up with some kind of plan. Because the communication is there. It's just sometimes getting the public to pay attention, or again, rather than waiting until we're outside your door, try to get in touch with us beforehand to get some information about the project. So we're just, I think right now trying to garner your interest in what it is that you are kind of asking of us for this MOU. So, that might take a conversation for y'all and staff to let us know.
I think Ms. Smith has already touched on that a little bit, about saying maybe we could start now with our PR campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't let me put words in your mouth, Susan, but I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty well known that, within our community, this is a tree loving community. Trees and dogs are both extremely popular here. So whatever we can do to show that we're doing everything we can to preserve and respect them, I think is, positive.
Okay. Rusty, do you have anything else?
Yes, I wanted to move on a little bit, if we could, Mr. Chair, to the utility undergrounding and talk about that a little bit, because
Right. I think we're talking about B, C, and also under new business A all at the same time, which is okay.
yeah, we are, and of course I think the really popular subject. Tree trimming is always something that's top of mind as well, but certainly underground.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, just wanted to get an update. Basically, I see these projects that have been put out here, the project estimates, and I would just like for the Dominion Group, if they could, to just talk through this a little bit more, because I see there's a number of disclaimers on here that there may be issues that could be discovered that would prevent them from completing the work, that these are only just kind of, it looks to me like it's maybe estimated costs that are sort of a macro level rather than a micro level. And talk us through that a little bit, if we could. And also how you came up with these projects, these particular 5 projects.
Ms. Hightower, would you like to handle that?
Sure. I'm gonna ask one of our guys, maybe Danny or Bill, if they might want to talk a little bit about just the underground conversion process and kind of some of the intricacies of that. And then Shane can actually talk to you about the specific projects. He's our engineer that put together this information. So I'll turn it over to those guys.
Yeah, Jennifer, this is Danny. Let me speak to the high level that Councilman Streetman that you wanted to have addressed. So we work at the end of the day on the non-standard service fund project. We work at the direction and the will of council. So we weren't, I think what we had been charged to do was to provide some representative projects that might make sense. But we ultimately would work at your direction as what projects you want to move forward. So when we do a high level estimate or something like that, it doesn't provide the exact precision that we normally do if we're going to be asked to proceed with the project with a full design. So the full design essentially takes out a lot of the uncertainty. It talks about, we precisely say this piece of equipment goes here. We do analysis about what else is underground that we're trying to avoid. So it's a much more advanced estimate. So we there's a number of criteria that other municipalities use in defining how they prioritize. Some may just be willing to define their own public interest as and I mean the municipality's public interest as the defining criteria, and they take that up in a vote. And then others may tie it to some other specific standards. So it might be, for instance, tree avoidance. It might be multiple pedestrian passings. It could be, other aesthetic features, economic development, whatever they wanted to prioritize. And that's how they set up their list. Mount Pleasant was very deliberate in the way they approached, at least up to a certain point. They were adamant that they were going to always get to Coleman Boulevard. That was going to be the priority for several years. So, I mean, what you got was our best effort to accommodate your request, but also to give you an idea. It's almost, it's a little bit unfair to say I want precision in the pricing. When you're ready for that, we could take any of this, and Shane could do a very detailed estimate. We would use the non-standard fund as the funding mechanism. We would be responsible for half the cost, but that's how that kind of the structure or the setup works. So does that answer your question regarding
Yeah, well, it's a good start. I guess now these 5 projects, were these identified by yourself and maybe the meeting you had with former Chair Pounds and Ms. Fregoso? I mean, how were these particular 5 projects identified, and are they high priorities for us based on?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were priorities for us. I would say they were identified as just concepts. So they came out of that conversation. But look, by no means do we put it this way. If we invested money from a reliability standpoint, it would be a completely different list. It would be. We're not doing it for our benefit. It's for aesthetic benefit and for other public interest benefits that are defining the way the municipality is able to leverage the funds. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned in here, this is really just meant to provide an idea of the scale of the project cost as you've described and what we're facing in these different areas here in terms of potential cost.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
A question that will help me as we're going through this, which is when we previously looked at this last year, we had a guide for how much funding that we had available that would help us. If Ron, do you happen to have that, or does somebody happen to have that? What we have can tap into right now? We have to match it, but what is it that's in the reserve that we can potentially pull out?
I'm looking into that right now. Give me just a second.
And that would help me to weigh what's doable in terms of these projects. I mean, I think that that will be a big piece of it, will be kind of maybe at first biting something off that we know that we can cover the costs of without having to, go, I mean, using what we have available from you all as a guide for what we match. But we could, while we're waiting on that, I'm sure we could kind of walk through these and get your takes on the pros and the cons.
And Councilman Streetman, maybe just, this is Bill Turner, but maybe just a little more information on some of these projects. I guess over time, we gather information from developers, engineers, that sort of thing. And so, like, for example, we know there's going to be some work going on at the marina. That's one of the reasons that we put that project out there for you to consider. So certainly you could choose none of these projects at all and come in with your own separate set of projects. So it's really up to you. Again, they're just representative. Some of these are big intersections. We've taken what we've known from other municipalities that we saw that they took into consideration and put on the project list. I think 14th Avenue, one of them. We got the marina. We got several others that are there, but it's really up to you, and we're at your disposal to talk about that. And again, it does give you an idea as to cost. Some of these, even though they may be very small in scope, because of the facilities that we have in place there, really could drive that cost up. They have a very large scope where we may not have a whole lot of facilities that are there are not main transfer lines, if you want to consider it that way. That would cost a lot of money and may require duplicate of our facilities for redundancy purposes. So we're certainly open to talk about any and all of this, and we can pull up one now just to have a conversation about it. Perhaps the marina is a good one to start with, and just let you look at it and ask us some questions. And we've got again, Jim Swittenberg is on here with us. He's our local manager in the Mount Pleasant office, which, as Jennifer indicated, takes care of Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island, among other municipalities. And we've also got Shane Kimball on here, who's our engineer, and he's got some detailed knowledge of these projects. We'd be glad to give you any and all information that we have.
It's good information, Bill. I think the marina would be a good one to look at. I'm sorry, Ms. Smith, so I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, I agree. And I think too, I mean, I think the point is that we've got work going on. There might be some economies of scale, and it might be a good time to get in there while other things are being disrupted, and get it all done at once.
And if I may
there
jump in here
other
for a minute.
projects? Are there other projects that are on this list that the committee has interest in? The reason I bring this up is that in my experience in the past is we would in Public Works, which is such a great committee because you get so much good stuff done that you can see the effects of. If there's something that we can agree on, one or two projects to make a priority this year, and it might drag into next year. But my experience is we've had success when we just focused on that project, and let's put all hands on deck and move forward working with Dominion Energy into making it a reality, starting today or starting in March. If there's an interest in the committee and identifying project number one, project number two, on down the line.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like I said, Ron, if you have the available figures on what money we are looking at, that would be helpful.
I do. The latest funds that I have are from May 31st of 2020. Jennifer, correct me if it's been updated since then, but the balance that we found at that point was $637,665.44. So there is money to be used there.
And so that is essentially our money that has been set aside through tax collection, or through, no, I'm sorry, through revenue collection. That's been set aside in a reserve, and it's a use it or lose it proposition over a 5-year cycle, if I remember correctly. So that if every year we lose money if we haven't spent it. So it's good to go ahead. So we could, but then we also have to match it with additional funds, correct? For every dollar that's spent, Isle of Palms has to match.
Yes. Bill, would you be able to speak to that? The exact
Yeah.
specifications of the program?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bill,
Danny, you want to take that one? Yeah,
Yeah, I
go
will.
ahead.
Yeah, so I believe the ledger that you've got, Ron, it represents the total of the two parties putting their money together. So the structure, Councilman Smith was absolutely accurate in that it requires the match, and I think that ledger includes both parties' contributions. So
Okay.
the structure is that the project advances, it gets a full design, it gets a final vote, and we would then spend the money. We'd have a very specific agreement about whether it's an actual or it's a detailed and estimated contract. And then you would match us with 50% of the project upon completion so that it ends up a 50-50 split. And Councilman Smith said something that's very important. It's a 5-year bucket of money. So in June of this year, when you get your next franchise check, it's that ledger adjusts. So if you've got, if you think of it as year 1 through 5, and then think of year 6. So when year 6 money comes in, year 1 drops off. So one of the important things to manage that fund so that you can simple things like detailed design engineering can be something that doesn't cost a lot of money, but it helps you get precision on the cost. That's part of what the fund gets utilized for. Still is still matched. So half of whatever that analysis takes is we're responsible for it through in kind. But that's the general structure that can be utilized. So, and we should, Ron, we'll confirm that when you show me that ledger, but that's normally how all those ledgers are established. They use the franchise fee, and then it uses the 50 basis points, and then that money shows up in that ledger that way.
That does appear to be correct. And this document that I have indicates that it is a 1-for-1 match as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, so we just need to make up our mind. What do we want to do and get moving on it? So
I mean,
let's bring it up towards the full council. Don't you agree? We don't want to lose it.
Right. I mean, I think it makes, just on the face of it, it makes some sense to go ahead and do the marina now while they're in there doing other construction.
Okay, is that a recommendation or a suggestion that we bring? We recommend that to the council?
I guess the only thing is like maybe how quickly could this happen? I mean, we've got construction going on at the marina right now, so that how fast could we put something like this in motion, or is this a multi-step process that we really wouldn't see happening at the marina for a while? If Dominion could speak to that.
Yeah, so I can talk to that a little bit. This is Shane Kimball. I'm the engineer that has been working on this. I did talk to our right-of-way group. Normally, right-of-way is the biggest wild card that you're looking at when you're talking about timeframes. There would be several easements needed if we were to do some sort of conversion on the marina property. Depending on, exactly what kind of scope of work we want to go with, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months is what he estimated on those easement acquisitions. I can say I'm also the engineer working on the renovations for the slips and the restaurant. And I know that they have been moving forward with that. I think they're, already in construction on a lot of that stuff. And so, I'm not going to say that there's certainly still opportunities to kind of join efforts, but I'm not sure exactly where that fits in now. I think I've already got transformers on order, and they're hoping to set a new transformer out there within a couple months for the new slips. So it would be a little bit of a stretch timeline wise to try to, but certainly if we knew this project was coming, there's always things you can plan to try to create synergy there. So,
Mr. Chair, just a question. Yeah,
yes, sir.
Just a question for Dominion. How disruptive is this type of work when you do these conversions for just the regular day-to-day traffic? I mean, given that we got the tourist season that will be right around the corner, and we have to be sensitive to that in any of these projects that we may end up doing with approval of council. So is it typically fairly disruptive to traffic and something that would be difficult for us to work around?
Councilman Streetman, it can be. We can. There are some steps that we can take to try to mitigate that. But usually, I mean, if it's a fairly big project like the marina, it's going to stretch for a number of months. That potentially could be into tourist season. If it's the marina, we may want to, that just might mean we want to avoid that. So for example, we might want to get through the summer and get into September, for example, before we would actually start something. But to Councilman Smith's question, I mean, these projects can stretch for, upwards of a year or more. It really just depends on the scope of it and what, type facilities that we have that are impacted. Another consideration is depending on the amount of load that we have on our system, we may not be able to switch that line out at that time. So that might be another consideration. So the hot summertime and the cold wintertime potentially is a time we have to avoid. So a lot of different things can impact the timing of the project. There's just a lot of variables that go into it. I do think it's would be better to go ahead and identify 1 or 2 projects and allow us to move forward and start looking at them and helping you make these decisions.
Thank you, Bill. That's where I was going with this, because we've got a new restaurant coming down at the marina. We certainly want to get that open as quickly as we can and not impact what they're doing down there. They're getting ready to go into it full steam ahead. I know Councilmember Smith wants to ask a question, but I would suggest at this point too, Mr. Chair, that we, I think we move forward and try to maybe take this to council and set some priorities based on these projects and some other thoughts that council may have, and just try to put some framework around this at our next meeting. I mean, we want to move it along the Ways and Means, or have whatever our next step needs to be. So, just my thought.
I agree. If you don't push it, it's just going to sit there for months, and we got to have some direction from council and from everyone, and we got to know where we're going, and it's time to move on it. So I totally agree.
I have a
Go
couple
ahead.
questions. One is, when we're looking at project 1 and project 2, does it make some sense to try and pair those up at the same time since they're right in the same neighborhood there or area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, if we could start with project 1 and, if you're happy with the results, you could certainly extend that into project 2 and just kind of work your way down 41st. And that's definitely, that's something that could be worked out as kind of a phased approach. So absolutely.
Okay. Although
Also, I'll make a comment too. I know you're talking about timeframes. I've got my little email pulled up from my right-of-way agent here that if you're looking for a project that's going to be, kind of something we can work out pretty quickly, projects 3 and 4 are kind of, they're the least impact right-of-way jobs. So maybe something to keep in mind. Obviously, project 5 would be a large undertaking. So that would be a very long-term idea. But yeah, I just thought that might be useful for the discussion.
well, and maybe what we could do is quickly get project 3 and 4 done and get that in motion while putting the wheels in place for projects 1 and 2 down the line. Does that make some sense? To
Yeah, certainly.
look at that. I mean, it sounds like we might be taking a little gamble to do 1 and 2 and expect that to happen. That probably is going to interfere with tourist season unless some magic happened. So,
Right.
but we could do the pieces that don't, and the engineering and all that could be done ahead of season, ahead of time, right? To get ready for the flow part.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So why don't we make it a point to committee members come up with 2 projects that they recommend for presentation to Ways and Means Committee on the 16th at this point, so we get this thing moving. It looks like we're heading towards projects 3 and 4. Is that something we can all agree on?
I agree with that.
Okay, we don't have to take a vote tonight, but we can. I think these are two good choices, 3 and 4, that I'm leaning towards, and that we could present it succinctly to Ways and Means and see if we can get this thing going.
I agree, but I think we also do it in the context of saying there's other very important ones here, like the Marina, 41st, and the Palm Oak Harbor, but we don't want to do anything to disrupt the tourist season either. And 3 and 4,
yes, sir.
To their point, would be projects that they think could be done without any major disruption during the high season.
Right. Well, the point is that I would get reports from every committee member at that Ways and Means individually and saying, this is my thoughts. Because we can't meet every day, public works, but I'm saying at this point to get the thing moving, it looks like we're on the same page as far as recommendations. I totally agree with you, Rusty, that there's other things like Oak Harbor we want to move on, but we're just setting priorities at this point.
So we're looking at adding it to Ways and Means as discussion, and then Councilmember Smith, myself, and you weigh in on our thoughts on each of these projects.
Yeah.
And we can.
I mean, there's no reason to have a special meeting for Public Works.
No.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a plan?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I think 3 and 4 sound doable, and that might be what we need as we get started with this. And also maybe staff could look at these projects as well and come up with some pros and cons that they see.
We certainly welcome their comments and thoughts.
Right. And we also should consider, even though I know the Dominion folks here are busy people as well as everybody else, but if we do that at Ways and Means, we probably ought to have part of the team here, Bill, Danny, Jennifer, whoever, that they decide that would be on hand if we needed to get some additional information from them.
Absolutely. We don't want to overcommit for Dominion Energy. Right. We don't want to speak for them. Go ahead.
The question for the Dominion team, we're talking about the time that's involved. In general, when you get down to construction and getting it done on the site, how long do these projects usually take from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it would greatly vary based on the scope of work. So I wouldn't have an answer for, in general. Bill, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, I was going to say, Councilman Smith, that's a great question. And, usually what happens, what we find happen is that the right-of-way acquisition, the planning in advance takes up a lot of time. And then the construction, depending on the scope of the project, can usually go very quickly. So it's just lining everything up, dotting I's, crossing T's, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I think, I think you all are moving in the right direction. I think this is a smart move to consider projects 3 and 4, try to find something that we can really get accomplished. And Shane, has already given us the recommendation on right-of-way acquisition. And our caution here, and I think everybody on our team would caution you about the fact that right-of-way acquisition is a difficult part of any project. We've already, actually, Danny and I had a conversation, and Paul Fisher was with us as well, with the mayor of Charleston about right-of-way acquisition, and we just had something come up today, and it's that same subject all over again. So, and I've personally had this experience on Isle of Palms, on Palm Boulevard near 21st Avenue. And we, this was a project that we were doing at our expense because we had an operational issue. We paid every single dime of the project, and we still cannot get people to give us right of way to place our facilities on it. So this will be a huge consideration. And I think if you will look at a project, if it makes sense to you and the other council members, then to try to find one that is light in terms of right of way acquisition, that's going to be the that I believe will move forward here the best.
Okay. That's
Okay.
helpful. And by quickly, are we talking weeks or months?
I would say months. Now, understanding that we're, I don't know the scope of the project, that we might be talking about here, and what type of directional boring and that sort of thing that we would have to do. But it would probably in the month time frame, month or several.
The construction, you're talking about the construction period could be months.
Construction.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, right away would probably also be on the month time frame versus weeks. So the notes that I have here from the right-of-way agent, with project 3, we've got about I think 4 easements on commercial properties, which sometimes are easier to work with than residential. And then on project 4, you've got another 4 to 8 easements depending. And I think that's also a commercial area as well. So some condos potentially, which can be difficult to deal with depending on how the HOA or the POA is. But yeah, definitely months. But certainly he's got here in his notes 1 to 2 months for project number 3 and 1 to 3 months for project number 4. But again, I do want to say these are estimates because, like I said, you can never know. It only takes one person to decide that they don't want to cooperate, and then that month turns into however long. So
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any more comments, discussions on item B and C under old business, or A under new business? Thank you very much for Dominion Energy and all the great information and pointing us in the right direction.
Appreciate it,
Well,
folks.
Thank you guys so much.
Councilmember
Yep.
Ward, actually, and this might be a question for Ron, for my clarification, under C, it seems like those are two completely different. Discussion of the non-standard and the MOU with water and sewer are two different things that maybe didn't get separated on the agenda.
Yeah, that was a little unclear.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we need to do to address that? Is anybody on the committee? Everything got kind of jumbled up there. They're all
Well,
three related.
Well,
Yeah.
but Isle of Palms Water and Sewer, I mean, to Nicole's point, that's kind of lumped in there with Dominions.
Yeah.
Right.
I
It
think
should
that
be-
was
So
just,
that's a separate issue. We do need to briefly discuss where we're
Are
at
they-
with that.
Are they here?
Uh,
Isle of Palms Water, are they here? Are they
I
here?
I
to
do
help
not
us?
believe they are, no.
yeah.
so maybe,
Ron,
Um,
I mean,
suggestions
yeah, the-
about, go ahead.
The version of the, hang on, I need to do a little bit of research real quick, sorry.
So are we through? We're through with Dominion at this point, right?
That's my understanding from Councilmember Ward, that we're done talking about all three of the items that address Dominion Energy on the agenda.
Okay. So thank you all
And,
for being here today.
thank you.
Thank
We
you.
will, we'll sign off unless you need us for anything further.
we
Yeah,
appreciate
hold
your
on,
help.
hold on just a second before you leave, because y'all got very valuable information for us, very valuable. Let me just read the item and make sure that we're covered. I don't want you to cut you loose unless we got everything taken care of. Discussion of Dominion Energy's non-standard service fund and list of eligible projects. Consideration of MOU with Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission regarding the island's sewer master plan.
Those are-
Mr. Ward, I want to point out that is an old version of the agenda. And I do have an updated one that is on the website. And when I sent out the invites this afternoon, I copied the wrong version of the agenda to it. And that is my fault.
Okay, very
I'm very
good.
sorry.
That clears that up then we can cut Dominion loose. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Jennifer.
Very good. Have a
Thank
good
you
evening.
all.
Thank
Do we want to go to D, discussion of temporary labor price increase for fiscal year 21? We probably need Donnie for that. And is he
So-
here?
Yes, he is. Hang on just a second.
Are we gonna at some point do the consideration of MOU?
No, so the version of the agenda that's on the website and is the actual public agenda does not have that on it.
Okay, so we're not talking about that at all. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
and it actually doesn't have the temp labor thing either.
Oh, okay,
Those were holdovers from last month that didn't get removed.
okay.
Okay. So that's totally an error there. That was okay.
Correct.
Got it.
We're
Uh,
jumping multi-use 1400 Palm Boulevard.
Yeah, and so I do have Donnie on the line. Donnie, are you there? Director Pitts?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I'm
Uh,
here.
Would you like to go ahead and give the department report if you have a minute?
Certainly, I do not have it in front of me. So you, in your packet, you should see my dashboard as well as Robert's bullets. I'm sorry that both he and I, we missed the invitation somehow. I don't know what happened, but we did. But I'll just say, we're steady working. Anybody have any questions about first the dashboard? Vehicle maintenance was under budget. Garbage, you see it is what it is. You see it. Is there any questions with Robert's bullets on his sheet either? Are there any questions?
Donnie, I do have, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry.
Certainly. Go ahead.
One thing I did want to talk about and I really don't have any specific questions on the report that you submitted for either you or Robert, but I want to bring up a piece of old business that we addressed back the latter part of last year. I think probably September, October, and even November we touched on it. And for whatever reason, we didn't really bring it up in January, but that's the possible elimination of backdoor service for some of the condos, like Seagroves out in Wild Dunes, where it could possibly.
Yes, sir. So,
and
February 5th.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For the Seagrove condominium, February 15th is the turnover date, where we will no longer service those enclosures. They are in the process of removing those enclosures and building two larger enclosures for the commercial Carolina Waste 8-yard slants that I'm going to put in there.
And okay, and forgive me, Mr. Chair, for bringing this up with you, maybe not having the background on it since you're the new chair, new on the committee, but
No, I've read about it. It's quite all right. It sounds
yeah,
like
I didn't know if you need some
No,
background.
no, yeah, I
on it.
read about it. It's quite all
Okay.
right. And it's just, actually, it should have been under old business, I guess, but it's
Yeah.
okay. It's just an update, and it's going to be in the middle of February. No problem.
Right. Right. And Donnie, thank you for the follow-up on that. So.
Yes, sir.
Any other
I'm curious-
questions on reports?
But just a follow-up on that, I'm curious to know if there was any blowback on that, any concern on the part of the people that were impacted?
Absolutely not. I did get a question or a call from one of the residents of Seagrove, if you can think of that, and because they are a full-time resident there. But once I explained the situation, and they were very appreciative because they were very close to the number 9 and number 11 enclosure, which is such a disaster starting in March, April, when the tourists get here and the garbage enclosures get in such a bad shape that my staff called me and I have to alert the HOA there to get somebody over there to clean it up. So he was actually positive about it.
That they think that this will be a better thing for them? then?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, great. Super. I don't have any further questions.
And they are, just so you know, they are aware that there will be an additional cost to the Seagrove subdivision in the user fee that would be paid to the landfill.
Okay.
And Donnie, are we looking at any other complexes that we do this with, or is it mainly just Seagrove that's where the savings are?
So, yeah, so historically for me, as long as I can maintain the quality of service with no overtime, that's how I've been working. And then as these houses get bigger or whatever, and I start to see the garbage packers maxed out, any of those type things, then that's when I need to make a decision of, okay, let's eliminate this and let's send this to a commercial so that we don't have to purchase additional apparatus, additional employees, and that kind of thing. That's how I've been working for the last 16, 17 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on reports? Okay, then we're going to skip around here, get down back to the old business. 5D, discussion of temporary labor price increase for fiscal year 21. Donnie?
Okay.
So
can you hear me?
I would like to point out that was part of that holdover from the last agenda that didn't get deleted, and is not actually on the corrected agenda.
Why do I have the wrong agenda? I don't know.
Because when I sent out the meeting invite with the link this afternoon, it contained the original version of the agenda instead of the updated one, which got posted on the website.
I thought I had the most updated one. Okay, never mind. Sorry, Donnie. We could talk about that later, I guess. Okay, so tell me, Ron, is item number C on the agenda?
So the remaining items that we have on the agenda are under new business, the discussion of the adjustment to the sidewalk and golf cart path along Palm Boulevard, and then the discussion of the FY22 10-year capital plan for public works.
Okay, item B, I talked with Desiree this afternoon. We just decided that we have not done all the preliminary work to give a report on that. And so we're going to strike that item, but it sounds like we do have discussion of Public Works 10-year capital plan on the agenda.
We do, yes. And if for whatever reason you don't actually have that capital plan in your packet, I am going to go ahead and share it right now. Give me 2 seconds here.
I've got it. I see it.
All right, so here's what we're looking at for next year. Specifically, we do not have any replacements of vehicles. We do have a 1998 Mack, which is going to be used for miscellaneous work, but will not be replaced when it fails. So that'll take us down one truck after that happens. And then we also have a replacement of a Z-Track mower for rights-of-way at $15,000. And that's pretty much it for the fleet. And then under facilities maintenance, we have the 1% of the public works building insured value. So that's 12,607. And then the majority of the budget for capital projects comes in under drainage for public works. So that's, as you can see, the general drainage contingency for small projects at 100,000, developing a comprehensive drainage plan for 250. Small drainage projects as prioritized by Thomas and Hutton at 500. And then repeat drainage work based on the 3-year maintenance rotation at 195,804. Phase 3 drainage construction, including Waterway Boulevard and the multi-use path, is 2.3 million roughly, for a subtotal of drainage of 3.35.
Questions? Comments?
Go ahead, Rusty.
I'm just going to say pretty straightforward here. I don't see any,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously the drainage is are the big dollars there, but that is what it is. And, you know, nothing else here that would raise a question for me.
I agree. Susan?
And the drainage, phase 3 drainage costs that that's not fixed quite yet, is it? I mean, it looks fixed here. It's pretty specific, but that could change a little bit depending on
Of course.
cost estimates, right?
Yeah, what if you talking about big numbers
Yeah.
like that, of course, it's subject to change. Ron, comments?
Yeah, I mean, at any point in time, you know, obviously what is budgeted for and what ends up occurring may be different due to the conditions on the ground at the time of that the work is done and that kind of thing. But
Well, and as we were talking, you know, I mentioned to Douglas, if it doesn't look like this reflects the possibility that we could do some kind of lighting along the path. So that might be extra money.
it could be, yes.
Right.
I
This-
don't believe that is contemplated in that budget. I'd have to double check.
And I don't think
wouldn't
it
expect
is.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think it is.
All right.
This is not an approval of any shape nor manner. It's just a discussion. It's a preliminary discussion that we're having in early February. Other comments or questions about the capital plan? We got a lot done today. Very, very good meeting with Dominion Energy. We came from having just a rough idea on the plate, and then with some good ideas from Susan about let's get that's the way I like to work, and let's get specific and let's get moving and let's just decide what our goals are going to be and move in that direction. So I'm pretty satisfied with how much progress we made today. I thought it was a pretty good meeting. If anybody else have any further comments, if you don't, then we have a next meeting date at 4:30, Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021.
I've got one quick question, budget related.
Go ahead.
The beach access path improvements, that's all going through public safety committee?
Real property.
Is it? Or
That's
real
all going
property?
through real property.
Real
Okay.
property.
Could be on a lot of committees, but okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
Any
All right.
other comments? There being no
Nope.
other comments, is there there's no reason for executive session? So a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yep.
Or I make the
Very
motion. However
Okay,
you-
second. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Off record at 5:45.